Hey guys, Dusten from Tucson's Forge here. Don't have a whole lot going on right now during quarantine, so I figured I'd take this opportunity and try and make a video. We'll see how it goes, see if it's something that we're going to carry on with in the future or not. While cleaning out the shop and looking around, found a couple pieces of what I believe to be 80 CRV2 left over from a Damascus build I did not that long ago. I only had 3 little strips. They're 1.5 inches by 3 inches, so I decided to take them and we're gonna try to make them into some little miniature throwing stars. So first thing I did, about like that, took them all, cut them in half. So now I have 6 little squares. Next step is to do the layout on them. Okay, so that's basically what we're going for right here. I'm gonna go ahead and find approximate center and punch a hole right here for our center hole, and then we're gonna lay out a circle, punch some other divots for some more holes, and then lay out our cut marks on the sides so that we have a little guide for when our holes are in. Hopefully we can get some semi-even edges to our little spikes. So we're going to go ahead and do that now on the rest of them and get back with you in a minute. So now we have them all of our layouts done on them. Next thing's going to be to go ahead and drill our holes in them. I already drilled a couple of them and I made up a little jig for the drill press. I'm going to show you that because I don't actually have a drill press vise right now, but I definitely don't want to be holding onto those by hand, and they're really too small to get a set of vice grips on them and be able to see what we're drilling. So I'm going to take you over to the drill press and show you what I got. So this is what I got for my little jig here for the drill press. Nothing fancy. Like I said, I don't have a drill press vise at the moment. So I just took a little piece of wood here and put a couple of nails in it. And the point of this is when I put the steel in here and start drilling, if it does catch, I've got a nail at each corner which will stop it from spinning. There we go. It'll stop it from spinning if the drill does catch. And again, I'm not going to be holding on to this with my hand or anything like that. Also, I've got the table set, so there's not a whole lot of clearance in between our nails and our drill bit, so it's not really going to be able to come flying out or anything, and hopefully that'll kind of keep me safe. As safe as we can be with what we've got. So we'll get set up, and we've got 4 more of these little guys to drill right there. So we'll get those done. All right. And real quick before we start drilling, because I know I didn't mention it before, this is a 19/64 drill bit. I know it's a really weird size. It just happens to be the largest drill bit that I have at the moment, and I'm going to be using just water for, as opposed to like cutting fluid or anything. I don't have any cutting fluid at the moment, but I use water most of the time anyway because it just helps keep the material cool, helps keep the drill bit cool. So let's get to it. we go. Got holes drilled in all 6 of them. Next step is going to be to go in and cut out all of our spikes on them. Then we will get to grinding. Okay, so the cutting and grinding process is going to have to wait until tomorrow. It's getting a little late and it's pretty dark outside. Don't have great lighting out on the patio where I do all the actual cutting and grinding, so we'll have to wait until the sun comes up and we'll get that filmed tomorrow. It's the next day, sun's up, let's get to work. Before we go outside, we need to gather some stuff up. Safety first. All right, we're all set up and ready to go on the first one. As you can see, I did take a Sharpie and darken up all of my scribe lines. They were really hard to see out here with the natural lighting and stuff, except for when you're at the right angle, and I don't really want to be getting my head down at a weird angle while I'm trying to grind. So here we go. Alright, kind of see what we're going for. I think that's going to be pretty cool. Now, one thing I did forget as far as my safety gear goes, I forgot to put my apron on, so I'm going to go ahead and grab that and get the Sharpie marks drawn on the other 5, because that actually really did help being able to see. I could actually see my scribe lines better even though they weren't as shiny. So I'm going to go grab that and I'll be right back. Okay, that is the last one. Next thing we're going to do is I'm going to go over to my 4x36 belt grinder, and I'm just going to clean up the flats. You see there's a lot of sharp edges hanging off from all the cutting and drilling and stuff, so I'm going to go over and just clean them up real quick. And then I think we're going to switch over to the 1x30 belt grinder because it's got a nice narrow belt, and we'll start grinding the bevels on all of these. So we've got 4 points on each, 2 edges per point, 2 bevels per edge. So we got 16 bevels that we need to grind on each one of these, so that's gonna be a bit of a time-consuming little bit, especially to get them all nice. So we're gonna move over to the 4x36 and get them cleaned up. That way we can start grinding the bevels. Got it set up. I am going to use a 60 grit belt to clean up the faces. It's an older 60 grit, so I'm not really trying to hog off a lot of material. I'm just trying to clean them up. Need to get some new belts. Got all my stars here. Got my little cup of water to keep them cool. Normally I'd have a big 5-gallon slag tank for keeping stuff cool and catching sparks, but we're just doing a few little stars, so I'm not too worried about it. So let's go ahead and turn it on and get going here. back inside where it's a little bit cooler, because before we get to grinding the bevels on here, I want to go ahead and mark the center on all of them. This is going to be a tedious process. We've got 48 different sides to mark. I'm going to go ahead and show you how we're going to do that and what I'm talking about here. So I'm just going to take a Sharpie marker and darken up the side of each bevel, and then what do we got? So I'm gonna set my calipers to about half of the thickness. These are about 1/8 of an inch thick, so we've got it marked at about 1/16. And then I'm just gonna go through and quickly scratch from each side. That way we get a nice, let's see if we can see that. There we go, kinda. Here we go. You can kind of see it. Doesn't want to focus properly. But we're going to get a nice line down it. That way when we grind, we can grind each side to keep them centered. That way, as you look at it, all of the edges are in line with each other, rather than over grinding on one side. So one edge is over here and then one edge is over here. This way it'll keep it all nice and semi-even. So we're going to go ahead and do that to all 48 edges, and then we can go out and do some grinding. Scribed. One thing I just thought about before I go out and start grinding the bevels, I'm actually going to take them all over to the drill press, and I'm going to chamfer all the edges. I don't know if that's in focus or not, but I'm going to chamfer the edges of the middle hole, just because once it's done, I think it'll give it a much better look. I probably should have chamfered all the holes after I drilled them, but I didn't even think about it until right now. So I'm going to go ahead and do that on the rest of them before we go out and start grinding. We're set up with the 1x30 grinder. Got all of our little stars here. We're going to go ahead and get grinding on these. Well, that's the first one. It's far from perfect, but that's okay. Grind the other 5, and then we can move on to heat treating them. And after we heat treat them, I left the bevels a little bit thick. After we heat treat them, we'll go around and clean them up and sharpen them up and try to make them look a little bit nicer. But they don't have to look perfect. I mean, they're going to be thrown at stuff, and I'm just making these for fun, so we'll get moving on the other ones. Let's get the forge fired up and get these things heat treated. I am going to let the forge heat up and get up to temp, and then I have a a pipe that I'm going to stick in there that I'm going to use so that I have a more even heating area to heat treat the stars. But first thing we got to do, get it fired up. Okay, we'll let the pipe get up to temp and then we'll start sticking them in and get them heat treated. It's about a week later now. We got all of our stars heat treated, and the night that I heat treated them, I went ahead and threw them in the oven and tempered them as well. Now, normally I would temper in my little toaster oven that I have here in the shop. However, it's been pretty hot lately, and the other night, even after I got done heat treating, it was 100+ degrees outside, and I didn't want my tiny little AC unit to be fighting against my toaster oven, trying to keep the shop cool. So went ahead and threw them in the oven in the house and got them tempered. I tempered them at about 450 degrees for a couple hours. I actually did a couple of cycles on them. So hopefully they'll still be nice and strong, and we've released enough of the brittleness that when we throw them, they're not going to break or chip or anything like that. Last thing to do is we're going to take these suckers outside, back over to the grinder, clean them up, get them all nice and shiny, and get them sharp, and then we'll go throw them at some stuff, see how we did. Let's get going. All the grinding's done. We have all 6 ground, brought the edges down. All the tips are extremely pointy. The edges aren't super sharp. I mean, they do have some sharpness to them, but they're not going to win any cutting competitions, that's for sure. One thing that I don't like is how shiny they are. I actually preferred the look of them when they came out of the quench and tempering process. I liked that nice dark black look to them. They're a little too shiny right now. So what I think we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and etch them and give them a forced patina. We're going to do that by dunking them in some ferric chloride acid for a little bit. Don't think it's going to take too long to get them a little bit dark. Then we'll go ahead and neutralize it, and then after that we're going to put it in a pot with some really strong instant coffee. We'll probably leave them there overnight. And that should take all of those oxides and darken them up so that they're real nice and black. So I have some string, I got a knife, got my instant coffee. I'm gonna go ahead and just tie a little string onto each one of them in the middle, kind of like a little tea bag. That way I have something to hold on to them, and dunk them in the acid, and then we'll get some coffee made up and see if we can get them nice and black. And then after that, we should be done. Then we'll get to go throw them and stuff. So let's get that part done, and then we'll get back. Alright, now that I have my little throwing star wind chime here, came over here behind the door. I've got 2 little things mounted on the wall. This one has ferric chloride acid in it, and this one is just water and baking soda to neutralize the acid. So we'll go ahead and dunk it in here for a little bit, see if we can get some good oxides going. We'll just let that sit there. Use the lid to hold it. Let that sit there for about 30 seconds to a minute and see what we got. Hey, guess what? I dropped them all in there. All right, looks pretty good already. All right, kind of gross looking, but you can see they're already nice and darkened up. We're gonna let them sit and dry for just a second. Got the coffee all made up. Still pretty warm. Smells great in here. We're gonna take the throwing stars and just drop them in like that. They're kind of halfway suspended. I don't want to really leave them laying on the bottom. Went ahead and grabbed the lid and do that just so that the string doesn't drop in there again. And we'll go ahead and leave this on the shelf until probably tomorrow. And then we'll take them out, rinse them off, and see what we got. Now, in case anyone's wondering, this is a 24-ounce spaghetti sauce can. And I used about half a cup of the just store brand instant coffee. In case anyone's wondering, this is the classic roast. It's medium, rich, and smooth because we want that classic rich and smooth finish on our throwing stars. Anyway, let these marinate overnight and come back tomorrow. Well, there you go. We made some throwing stars, we threw some throwing stars, and we had some fun. These little throwing stars don't quite have enough mass to really stick into things very well. They are sharp, they will bite you. I got bit on a bounce off of a piece of wood. I think the profile needs to be just a little bit more acute on the tips to really get them to stick well into harder materials because of their low mass. They do stick fairly decently in cardboard. Even my 7-year-old was able to get them to stick into the cardboard, so they had a lot of fun. Both of the boys had a lot of fun. I now only have 4 throwing stars. I started out with 6, lost 2 to each one of the boys on a wild throw. But maybe we'll revisit it in the future, make some slightly larger ones with a little more mass, and see what we can do there. If you've made it this far in the video and you're still watching, I just want to take a second to thank you for sticking around, and please feel free to drop a comment in the comments section and let me know what you thought of the video, what you thought of the project. This is the first video I've done for YouTube, so it's a learning process. It's a lot more work than I thought it was going to be. So if there's any advice that you have or a project that you'd like to see in the future, feel free, let me know. Whether we're doing blacksmithing, bladesmithing, woodworking, random crafts, whatever it is, I'd be glad to hear from you. And if you haven't already, feel free to stop by my Facebook and Instagram at Two Sons Forge. Drop me a like there. See a lot of updates on any projects that I've got coming up. Thanks, and stay safe out there.